Good evening and welcome to what's happening in John's shed. Follow on with a little Valiant engine. I've done lots of little bits and bobs on it all over, put some studs back in, checked all these pipeworks tight. I've had a mess about with the ignition system, so all sort of progressing slowly. I've given the sump a nice clean and paint. I've spent a little bit of time on these faces. As I said in the previous video, these faces become distorted. Even though they have these little metal backing strips, they do go a bit out of shape. They're pretty good at leaking oil, these little engines, if you're not careful. I'm not a great fan of cork gaskets, but I've got some from the club, so might as well use them. I've put a little tiny smear of High Lamar gasket sealant on there, which I'm quite a fan of. So what we'll do, we'll pop this on now. There's a cutaway in the edge here, and that lines up with this edge here, which just what's the word? Just protrudes. That's the word. Just protrudes slightly above this face. There's a little cut out there. It's not really necessary, but pop this on. It goes on those studs like that, lovely. And then have these metal backing strips, which on the two side ones, you have to put these on first, because these are the return connections for the oil from the rocker gear. And if you don't put them on at this stage, they won't fit under these fittings, which is worth remembering. It's easier to do when it's not upside down. They go on there. See, I always do this and get them the wrong way around. Good old John. Got to snug fit on the studs. So now I've put them on, they don't want to come off again. That's it. I think what we'll find is they go that way. That's it, and that one goes that way. So it goes into the corners. And these two that I've put on are both the wrong way around. Is it Sod's law or somebody's law anyway that you're going to get it wrong? So it just proves this isn't staged. From there. They're all in need of a little bit of a tidy up, all very scruffy. The one worry is if you ever use a shot blast cabinet, and of course the shot blast is not a good material to have going around your engine, so if you ever use a shot blast cabinet on any engine parts, go to a lot of trouble to clean everything up and get every last trace of it out, because it takes very little to do a lot of damage. These little nuts have a tiny spring washer under them. I can't really imagine them ever coming loose on vibration, but they were fitted from the factory, so I'm going to put them back on again. The detail, all this other detail is it's a lot of work for for a small engine. If you imagine on this, what they call an assembly line now, in the days when these were built, how fiddly these must have been to assemble. So not really time efficient. The the amount of parts used, it's pretty incredible really for a small engine. You can see why profit margins are always quite thin for Valiant. It's did quite well with the big singles, which were excellent machines, world proven and still collected today. These little engines are not looked upon in the same way as their big brothers, unfortunately, because they weren't as successful. They weren't as they were just as innovative, I think, as the bigger brothers, but they certainly didn't bring the profits or the acclaim that the big brothers did. There's a really good test in the Valiant Club archives of them having an LE, which is a very close cousin to this engine. Basically all the bottom half is the same, it's just that they had side valve engines. They took it to Australia and did quite an arduous long distance test, which was quite closely monitored by the organisation over there. Everything was sealed apart from the oil filler cap and fuel filler cap, you know, these sort of essential things. And they did quite a long test. I've got in mind that they did a 12,000 mile test with oil changes in between, I believe, and they were thrashed across Australia by several different motorcycling journalists of the day. And the report is quite interesting to read, because some of them weren't really wanting to do the test because it was a bit below them, I think. But I think they all came back with the same thing, that the little bikes were just absolutely incredibly fun to ride, pleasant to ride in their own way. They were never going to compete with the big cousins, but they did very well out of it. And when they done the test, they dropped the oil and all the associated plugs and everything was fine. They did the valve clearances, and the little engines just proved themselves. So even though they were not as successful as some of the bigger ones in their own way, they did quite well. I believe there's people been all over Europe on them. There's a family that have got the photographs of their parents going 2 up across Europe on an LE with all the luggage, and I believe that was a 150, the really early one, which was extremely underpowered, to say the least. I'm sorry if I'm in the way of the camera. It's a bit boring, this is really, to be videoing, but just thought I'd show you the basics underneath it, because I've not turned it over and put the sump on before. So what I intend doing is, if I can get this sump in and get the sump on and all the pipework connected up in the next couple of days, I'll be popping it back in the frame. I've done the engine mounting bracket for the front, I've painted that. Just got the pipework to all connect up, and that's mainly it. I've stripped the electrics out. I intend modifying that. I've got a twin outlet 12 volt coil which has arrived recently. I've ordered a modern regulator rectifier for the electrics. I'm going to upgrade it to 12 volts, so I'll put a 12 volt battery on it and run it through all the 12 volt regulator, etc. Change the bulbs, and I'll just do it straight. So the electric supplying the contact breakers, you know, the coil, comes straight from the battery ignition switch, and I've just to set the points, nice, simple, easy design, simple to repair if there's a problem. As I said before, it's called a mini mag ignition system, supposed to be very good. I don't doubt it is, but that's not for me, thank you. I've only just gone on the dark side on my old classic car. I put an electronic ignition system on that, a very basic one, which is fine. I've been criticised by my friends who've said, why change it after 55 odd years. I had to spend some money on it, on the ignition system, and I thought, well, I'll just try one of these. So, right, I think that's all nicely tightened. Just give that a run round tomorrow when the Isle Mars settled down a bit, when it's squeezed out a bit more. It's quite cool in here tonight. You can perhaps see on my wonderful oil burner stove in the background chunking away. She's running on waste liquid. It's just a log burner with a nozzle and an air supply under fan. I'm going to have to take my jacket off here. It's been quite hot in here now. It's about 0 outside. I think I saw a bit of frost on the car roof. So this heat is fantastic. In fact, I'm just looking at the casing of this oil burner, and it's this liquid burner, and it's just starting to glow red. I think I might just turn it down a little bit. But so that's that on. That's the pipe for the oil filter. I've got 2 of these pipes, which are the returns from the rocker box to the sump. Got those to put on, and I can flip it back over the right way up, ready for refitting. The engine mounting here, quite straightforward. It was sprained on these 2 faces for some reason, so when I put it straight over here, that one was deflected more than the other, and I've noticed that there's been a weld repair. In fact, if I can take my phone off without disturbing the filming too much, I'll show you. Right, so bearing in mind the engine's upside down, this stud screws into the crankcase here, as does this one, and this bracket, when it's fitted to the bike, that sits on those 2 studs there, and these 2 ends fasten to 2 lugs on the frame. And when I tried it, it was all twisted, and I've looked here and there, it's had a weld repair on this corner. It's been well done, it's been done from inside and out, so this engine has been stripped down before, and someone has welded that. It's a beautiful clean weld, and it's all been machined back on that face and this face, and the studs have been refitted. I've taken that stud out, and it's all lovely inside. There's no bodgery at all. So it's probably had a clump or something when it might have run into a curb, or I really don't know. It'd be nice to find some history about it on the bike, but I doubt I'm going to at this age. So that'll be the engine mounting for the front. The back of the engine sits on these 4 studs here, which go across to the frame. And there's the liquid burner. You can just see it glowing red hot there. So the front engine mounting goes there and there. That's the bracket I've just shown you. And then at the back of the frame, you have 2 frame mounters there and there. And the output from the gearbox goes into the drive shaft, which is spring loaded there. And there's a felt seal that sits there and is trapped between there and the back of the gearbox. So the movement of the swinging arm keeps that all nicely sealed in there. You're supposed to soak the felt seal with oil, which I've bought a new one from the club, an old LE club. I'll move that basket out of the way. I can show you what I've stripped out of here. Sorry, it's all a bit anyhow. So bearing in mind the engine's now upside down on my table there. So the 2 coils, ignition coils, used to sit there and there. They were in very poor state. I've taken them off and they're absolutely US. So I've tidied all these ends up on here, sleeved them with some heat shrink, resoldered a couple of loose joints which were very poor, same as the contact breaker, feed wire there. Tidied it all up, tucked it all away nicely, so that's all, and it's all tested out nicely, good continuity, etc. So that's all looking good as far as that goes. So when I put the cover back on, that'll all be covered over, and then I'll just mount an ignition coil on top of the engine, which will be hidden under the top covers, which you'll see at a later date. So there's the engine upside down now with the sump on, and I hope I haven't waffled on too much about it. If anybody's got any questions on it, please ask me. I'll show you what I can. I have several bits and bobs I can take to bits to show you if you wish. So we've got lots coming on what's happening in John's shed, apart from this little Valiant, which may be boring everybody now. So I'm going to get Ruby recommissioned for the summer. This is my CX500 Phoenix bike, really. I bought 4 bikes in loads and loads of parts. 2.5 of them were knackered. So out of that I've made the best of a bad bunch and made my cafe racer. Mainly I think the biggest problem is the carbs. I stupidly forgot to drain them, and they're now gummed up with whatever it is that's left over when your petrol evaporates. It's been great fun. I've loved building it. It's about 4 years ago now since I built it, and it's great fun. I wouldn't like to ride very far on it because it's not the most comfortable thing, and that fuel tank doesn't hold a great deal. I can get to Cadwell Park and back from my house, and it just goes on reserve, and that's perhaps about 90-mile round trip. So that gives you an idea. It is a little bit thirsty. They're quite a bit bigger carburetors, and I've done a little bit of work on it, so yeah, it does go quite well. It performs engine wise better than it does handling wise, and anybody who knows anything about CX500s will know that they're not the best handling machines in the world, but they're certainly not the worst. So that'll be another little job in the future. We'll go for a walk around the other Valiant at some stage. I've got my lovely dear, and I love this little bike as much as anything I've ever owned, I think, my little LE Valiant, which is such an unusual little machine in every way. They're just gorgeous. Overhead, sorry, 4-stroke, but it's side valve, water cooled, but the gearbox and crankcases are almost identical to the Valiant, which I've just been doing, but say the water cooled. This one being 1956 era is getting more advanced from the first ones. This one is a 200cc or 192cc, whereas the first one's 150. And this one is a bit of an interim, really, because even in 1957 they were still producing bikes with hand gear change, and this is one of them. This has got hand gear change, and it's also got a hand start, which a lot of people have sort of looked a bit strange at, but it does work very well. There's the starter down there, and there's the gear change. I have got a little video on what's happening in John's shed elsewhere of me when I first rode this. I'd never ridden anything with hand gear change before, and you can perhaps tell when I take it out, but I've got to say I've done perhaps 1,000 miles on that, and I absolutely adore riding it. I've got quite a collection of toys, and I get as much pleasure from riding that beautiful old thing as I do from anything else. Here's another little project that we can have a look at if anybody's interested. I've owned this one 43 years. I've had this, my beautiful Tiger 100 SS. It's a bit of a rarity. I didn't build a great deal. It was only built in this spec for about 6 months. It's with the electric blue, and it's got the what they call the partial rear enclosure on the bodywork. I restored this 40 years ago in a 6x8 shed in my garden with a single light bulb and an extension lead with a double outlet. The chrome on the wheels that's original. I've met the guy who owned it in the 60s. I worked with him, strangely enough. I restored the bike, went to work on it one day, and he came over with some photographs and said, here's some pictures of me on it in the Isle of Man back in I think it was 67. He was in the Isle of Man on it. So yeah, that's another thing we could have a look at. I've got my big old beautiful pussycat there just waiting for this summer. It's a bit dusty because I left the dust sheet down when I was doing some sanding, but it looks a lot worse than it is. That's a 1967 Jaguar S 3.4 manual with overdrive. Absolutely awesome machine. 220 brake horsepower back in 1960s, eh? It's yeah, that's another story. So we can look at that. And then this is my Mini. This was supposed to be done this winter, but the Valiant's taken over, I'm afraid. This is a Mark 1 Mini from 1965 that I rescued from the big car park in the sky. Unfortunately, I've done lots of work to it. It looks terrible at the moment because it's being used as a bit of a storage shed, but yeah, I've done a lot of work to here, this corner, rebuilt that and all the floors. We've got the new front end there. I managed to get an original Mark 1 bonnet, which was missing because it had a fiberglass front on when I got it. So that's another thing. The subframe's there. I've done all the subframe. That's all prepared, ready for rebuilding. I've got all the new ball joints and everything for it. Got the steering rack up there, look, that's all been overhauled. All spare seats out of my Jag. That's all spare stuff, you know. Can't have enough stuff, can you? So anyway, that's enough of me rabbiting on. Back to the Valiant. So please subscribe and like in that order if you wish, and we'll speak again soon, and we'll have a look at this when it's in, and we'll do a bit of wiring if you like. See you soon then. Good night. Bye bye.